Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Primal Live. I'm your host, Jodie Dighton, and my co-host for today is Christine Bailey. Paul's not joining us today, so it will be the two of us that you've got for today. And hello, Christine, how are you today?
Hi, Jodie. It's lovely to see you again. Yeah, busy, end of the week, very busy. As you know, lots going on in news with nutrition and research. And also we've got a lot of events coming up. So can I just share something with you?
Yeah.
We have a hands-on day for children, cookery day for children on the 27th of February.
Yes.
It's held in Berkshire, Wokingham. It's actually held at a secondary school which has a specified dedicated kitchen teaching facility. So it means that children come with their parents, basically a hands-on experience of cooking healthy treats. So we're going to be making some healthy bars, some brownies, some savoury muffins and dips. And it's such a fun time. And all the kids get such a buzz. They get to eat all the food, obviously, or take it away. And they all get goodie bags of various goodies. And for those that are listening, all the recipes are always gluten and dairy free. So if your child is celiac or has other allergies, then, you know, it's a great fun time. They don't need to worry about, being left out, contamination, because it's all gluten and dairy free. So that's great.
How do people sign up for that? Just out of curiosity. So I've seen it on your Facebook page.
Yeah, so details of booking. If you go onto my website, which is christinebailey.co.uk, I'll send you the link now. And there is a workshop page. I'm just literally going to stick that into the comments section now, so that if people do want to sign up, there you are. You just click on that. We limit the numbers because every child has to have their own cooking area, just because it's fun. It's much
and you
more
need
special.
one parent to one child.
Well, we've actually got one parent coming with both of their children. That's fine.
Okay.
So please don't worry. Yeah, if you've got a couple of children, you can bring them and just yourself. That's absolutely fine. And I've been sampling all week. I've been in, as you know, I'm involved in the Freedom Awards.
Yes.
So they have kicked off. The judging has kicked off this week, and tomorrow, talking about allergies and children, I actually host the children's category, which means my house is flooded with children without allergies coming to eat a whole range of food.
Done at your house then?
Well, it's partly because, as you know, I see clients that have lots of allergies, including children.
Yes.
And obviously, I'm a trained teacher. I've got CRB checked, so we have to go through all those protocols as well. And it's more of a friendlier environment for children to mingle, to interact, and they love it. They absolutely love it.
So is that related with the Freedom Awards?
Yeah,
then? Is that all part of that?
Yeah, so there is a special category for children. Now, it's not saying children have to have special food, but what it is trying to do is recognise the fact there's a massive market here for healthier, allergy-free products that children will eat. It's all very well saying, oh, well, they can have a chia pudding or something. Realistically, what they really want is, particularly savoury foods that all their friends are eating, but are safe for them to eat.
Yes.
So it's really a recognition that there is a big market out there for companies to create food that children with multiple allergies, often, it's not just gluten-free or dairy-free, but often multiple allergies, can quite safely eat, and they would like to give it to their friends. If their friends came round for tea, would they feel comfortable everyone eating this food? And that I think is a real test of a good allergy-free product. Would you even notice it was allergy-free if you weren't told? So, and obviously we want children with allergies to be the judges, because they're the ones that are experiencing this on a day-to-day basis. So it's a great day.
That'll be interesting. Are you going to be recording that? That'll be brilliant. Are you going to
Well, we're allowed to take pictures, but obviously because it's secret judging and the awards aren't announced until sort of normally about April, obviously it's a bit difficult to film because it might give things away.
Oh, yes, of course. But you have been busy because you were on Sky News yesterday as well.
Yes, I was. And that was because, as you know, also I do a lot of work trying to help people reduce their sugar consumption.
Yes.
And this was, it was actually a study on certain types of fruit, flavonoids.
Yes.
Well, flavonoid-rich fruits and vegetables, actually. It wasn't just about fruits. But the study has shown that just very small consumption of flavonoid-rich fruits, so we're talking things like berries, red onion, red cabbage, pears, apples, that are high in polyphenols, this has been associated with a moderate reduction in weight, but particularly not putting weight on during your middle age years. So they were looking at people around late 30s to sort of late 40s. And that's actually often a time where we start putting on a lot of belly fat, which is associated with an increased risk of diabetes, insulin resistant blood sugar problems. And they found that even just a small, handful of blueberries on a regular basis may actually help to prevent weight gain and may help weight loss. Now, the mechanism they didn't really state, but I've looked at other research which shows that what blueberries in particular, the anthocyanidins, seem to do is blunt glucose response after a meal. So when you eat a meal, often, you get a massive rise in blood sugar, then a big insulin spike, and that drives the blood sugar into the cells, or it's stored as fat, hence abdominal fat. Just adding some blueberries seems to reduce the absorption through the intestinal wall, which means you don't get such a big insulin spike. So very interesting research. You've got to be a bit careful with some of the research out there because some of it could be causal, i.e., are these people who are maybe eating more berries healthier anyway? Are they making generally healthier choices? Are they more active? Blah, blah, blah. So you do have to be a bit careful with what we call observational type studies. But there has now been a lot of studies, independent studies, on these anthocyanidins and generally polyphenols as being very useful for improving blood sugar control. Very interesting.
You think as well, see, now this is on the general news, you'll see people going out and buying loads upon loads of berries. Massive increase. You said on the broadcast when you were on Sky News, and you said again there, 1 to 2 portions.
Yeah. It's not masses, no. I mean, and actually they were probably actually not even quite saying that. They were almost saying, if you have a few over the week, that could be protective. So they weren't even saying really every day. The reason I mentioned that is because what a lot of people assume is 5 a day means 5 fruit. It doesn't. Really 5 a day was sort of plucked out of the air a bit anyway from, the studies. It's not really something that as a nutritionist we would recommend. We would actually recommend have at least 5 vegetable different portions a day. And then if you want some fruit, fine, have 1 or 2 portions, but don't go over the top with fruit. And if you are doing fruit, it's whole fruit, not dried fruit, and not fruit juices that you buy in the shops, or the Starbucks.
It's misleading though, isn't it? It's misleading. All the packaging now all has on the sides of the bottles 105 a day.
Yeah. And
as well, but this is very misleading because if you're not aware or you're not up on research, you would look at that and really you're following the guidelines. And one of your 5 a day, plus then an apple in their lunch, maybe a banana with their orange breakfast. Well, there's 3 of my 5 a day there. Some grapes after dinner. And you're not reaching that limit.
And that's a very good point, actually, Jodie, because the new guidelines on sugar actually do include fruit juices as an added sugar. So I would struggle with people thinking that getting a processed juice is now a healthy option. Bear in mind, a normal standard small bottle or carton that you buy in, say, a cafe will have almost as much sugar as a can of Coke. It's that much, and this, I think, is the problem. The other thing is, I mean, we know that cans of Coke are acidic and can affect enamel on the teeth. So can orange juice. And particularly if you drink orange juice and then you said, right, I'm going to start brushing my teeth, that's actually the worst thing you should do. You should actually wait and let the acidity sort of decline slightly before brushing your teeth. So don't have a glass of orange juice late at night and then brush your teeth. That will actually make it worse. And the other thing that I mentioned was, again, you know, when we're parents, we're taught all this stuff and it's not actually accurate. So we're told, you know, if your child's hungry, give them a small packet of raisins. That, again, is one of the worst things you could do, not just for blood sugar, but the fact that they stick in your teeth. Yes. And children at the best of times, unless you are there literally forcing them to brush their teeth, are really bad at brushing their teeth. I have to keep reminding my boys to brush their teeth. And so they're going to get little bits of dried fruit stuck all around their teeth. And again, tooth decay.
I had a friend whose child, when he was younger, she was very strict with their sweets and with their sugar intake. But he ate loads of raisins and cranberries. Yeah. And you know what? He ended up with the same problems that you would from eating loads and loads of sweets because the raisins were getting all stuck in his teeth. Yeah. And he was getting tooth decay. And he ended up having to have teeth pulled and rotten teeth because of it. He couldn't understand why. Yeah.
So I think, you know, and the other thing to say about dried fruit, and actually one of the Sky presenters was chatting to me after the interview and said, you know, you're right, Christine. One of the problems with dried fruit is that it's easy to overeat. So if you think about dried apricots, you know, you need to think those are the equivalent of a whole apricot. Now, it's easy to quickly eat a bag of dried apricots. Try and eat 10 to 15 apricots that are fresh. That's very different. So, you know, that's one of the other problems with dried fruit. It's very easy to overeat on them. And they are very high in sugar. So, you know, you often don't eat fresh cranberries because they're quite sweet, but they will have, you know, half a cupful will have around about 2 grams of sugar. Half a cup of dried cranberries has about 37 grams of sugar. So, you know, we're looking at 9 to 10 teaspoons of sugar. Now, bear in mind, the latest guideline on the amount of added sugar in your diet should be around about 6 or 7 teaspoons a day. So a glass of fruit juice or, you know, a small packet of dried fruit is going to set you over that.
Very quickly.
You know, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Well, you know, this is a very good lead into one of the things that I wanted to discuss with you today. New year, everybody's making smoothies.
Yeah.
You know, smoothie bars are popping up everywhere. And it's a good way. They have their benefits. They're a good way to get in a good portion of vegetables, to get some healthy foods in. And unlike juicing, you're getting some of the fiber in. Is there a place in our diets, with what we're talking about here, with the increasing the amount of sugar and overdoing it with fruit, is there a place in our diet for smoothies?
Yes, and as you know, Jodie, I'm actually going to be running a Try a Green Smoothie challenge, a 7-day challenge at the end of February. And you know, please, people, sign up for it. It's all free. You're going to get the recipes. You're going to get everything. And you've got a chance to win a NutriBullet and one of my books. So now there's a big difference between a homemade green smoothie and a shop-bought processed fruit smoothie, or even one you buy in a lot of these bars. And the reason is simple. When you go into one of these bars, and just go in there and see what they do, it's not particularly vegetable based. Vegetables, as you know, are lower glycemic. They don't contain very much in the way of sugars. They also are much more mineral rich, and they're full of fiber. So I'm a big fan of green smoothies, and there's a big but, you know, just having a couple of bits of spinach and then throwing 200, 300 mils of apple juice, orange juice, plus fruit, plus some of them even add syrup. That is not healthy. You know, I would rather chew on a lettuce leaf, to be perfectly honest, to get my greens.
Yeah.
But if you are blending something yourself and you add a good handful of spinach or broccoli or kale or whatever it is, you then add a bit of fruit for sweetener and water, which is hydrating, or something like an almond milk or coconut milk for a bit more protein. And then you think, right, I might add some healthy fat. I might add a bit of coconut oil, some nut butter, some nuts. I might add some protein powder. Then you've got a relatively healthy, quick, healthy go drink. Could be a breakfast replacement. It could be a meal replacement if you're really busy. And that could be really healthy. And if you keep the sugar consumption from the fruit relatively low, it's a really good way of getting yourself to have more variety and more greens in your diet. And let's face it, the latest studies of the National Diet Surveys indicate only a third of people won't even meet anywhere near the 5 a day. And what is missing are the green vegetables, and they are the most nutritious. So if I can get more people to eat more greens by blending, that's a great way to start.
And I think you're right what you're saying, that people are kind of have the proportions the wrong way around. They're adding a token vegetable, adding the token fruit. Most people's smoothies come out looking like, blended pina coladas, and know that they're very fruit-based smoothie as opposed to vegetable-based, because like you say, green smoothies, when you're adding your parsley, you're putting in your kale, you're putting in your spinach, cucumber, all of those things. But it's a very different tasting smoothie as well, which is what I think people aren't aware of, because they taste it, they go, oh, I can taste the parsley, and they're adding all the sweetness back in, and they're forgetting why they're actually doing it in the first place.
Yeah. And I mean, I think if you're a real beginner and you are almost like a Coke addict, then you probably will have to add more fruit to start with. Absolutely, you will. You don't suddenly become a green juice lover overnight. You've got to retrain your taste buds. So if it means initially you have to add a bit more pineapple, so be it. And then, but what you're looking to do is gradually wean that down and increase the greens. But we're not all perfect overnight, and our tastes may be very influenced by what our current diet is like. It's a bit like someone trying to get off caffeine. Often it's quite good to do it gradually. And then you think, well, I'm not really missing it. I'm not craving it anymore. So I think, green smoothies are a really good introduction into healthier ways of trying to get more vegetables. And it's vegetables really in the diet. And, again, the nice thing about trying a green smoothie, particularly in the morning, is that there's a mindset here. You start the day with something healthier than perhaps sugary cereal or toast or whatever. And you are starting to think, do you know what? I put something really good in my body already. I've started the day well. I'm going to carry on doing something good for myself. That sort of scenario where, you eat a donut and you think, oh, I've blown it today. It doesn't matter what I eat now. I've, stuff it.
Yeah.
So the opposite is true. You kickstart the day with a healthy choice, and it can have quite profound effects on your other choices for the rest of the day. And I think that's a point.
When you're having smoothies, do they have the same impact on satiety that a meal would? Because obviously we went through a phase where everybody was juicing everything. We were juicing our carrots and our celery and everything, and just getting all the liquid. So we weren't getting the fiber. Now, obviously, when we're blending it, we're still getting the fiber. We're taking it all in liquid form. Is that going to have the same impact on our stomach and on sending the signals to our brain to tell us, yes, I've had enough, yes, I'm full?
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of studies on actually using liquids which have fiber as a way of suppressing appetite. So it's been suggested that, one of the reasons why people that have a lot of sort of vegetable or bean type soups find it easier to lose weight is because they're very filling and they've got a lot of fiber, which also then slows down the rate of release and keeps you fuller for longer. So there's a big difference between blending and juicing. And blending, you are retaining the nutrients, but you are actually making them more biodigestible for the body. So particularly if you're someone who struggles generally with their digestive health, blending might actually be a very good option for you, because it's almost doing the hard work that your stomach and your pancreas would do. So, you know, as long as you're including fiber in there, which you will be doing if you're including green leafy greens, but also you could add a bit of flaxseed or whatever as well, then yes. But the other thing is, it's how you drink it. So if you quickly down it,
yes,
remember, it often takes 15 to 20 minutes for your brain to say, I've had enough to eat now. So it's better for you to drink it slowly and to almost savor it. Don't just quickly down it and then think, oh, I'm still hungry. Give your body time for it to register, are you really hungry? And that's a key point as well. So, you know, with all meals, we shouldn't be eating on the go. We shouldn't be just stuffing it in when we're not really focusing on the fact that we're now having a meal. We should take our time, sit down,
be present.
Savor it. Yeah. It's going back to mindful eating again.
And what about additives? Because you can get lovely things like superfood powders to add to them, or like you said, protein powder, lucuma, maca, all these types of things. What are good things to add or should do? Is it worthwhile? I find just putting in, if I'm having a spinach and kale smoothie, I've got parsley, I've got some cucumber in there, a little bit of banana, some nut butter. Do I need anything else?
Potentially not, because I would rather people get real food in. I mean, I don't mean that superfoods aren't real foods, but what I don't want is people to feel, do you know what, I can't afford those, so I therefore can't do it. Yes, you can do it because you don't need them. There are additions which can be very beneficial. So, for example, if you're feeling a bit under the weather and you think, I could do with a bit more vitamin C, then baobab is brilliant. I mean, just a small, almost a quarter of a teaspoon is far more than you get in a whole load of oranges. So it's a very effective way of suddenly boosting up something. If you're a bit stressed, then you might want to look at an adrenal adaptogen like ashwagandha or maca, for example. If you are working out or post-working out, then yes, absolutely. Things like protein, electrolytes, like coconut water, really useful. So they have their place. There's no question about that. But they're not essential for you to get the benefits and experience the benefits from a green smoothie.
It's good.
Yeah.
Fine. Brilliant. So when is the smoothie challenge happening? The end of...
So it happens, you can sign up now. Just go onto my website, christinebailey.co.uk. You'll see a banner at the top. Click, you sign up. And then a couple of days before it starts, it's going to start on the 29th of February, so you've got plenty of time. It will start then, but a couple of days before, you'll get the shopping list for the whole week and the first recipe. So you've got everything to get you started. And we're not saying you are going on a restrictive diet. All we're saying is try a green smoothie a day. You have normal food, but you might want to use it either as a replacement for your breakfast or a snack, or in addition, depending on how active you are. And what we'll also do is we'll have additional extras. So if you are working out or you do want it as a meal replacement, then we'll say, add a scoop of nut butter or protein powder, etc. So we give you options so that you can tweak it according to what your general daily needs are.
Brilliant. Oh, excellent. And your book, your green smoothie book, is out as well.
That's out. It's out
now.
It's out now through Amazon. So, and that has 3 different diet programs in there. So if you want a quick shape up for a weekend, there's a little program in there for you. You want something longer for a week, or you want something to combine it with your meals, there's lots of different options there for you. So, we're finding loads of people are loving the recipes, the ideas, just really to give you a bit more imagination. But also what we've done is we've highlighted each recipe. So if, for example, you want something for energy, you want something for your skin, you want something to help with sleep, we have labeled them all so that you can quickly say, I'll try that one because I'm going to do a workout, or I need something because I'm, wanting a meal replacement or something like that. So there's lots of easy ways of choosing the recipes for your needs.
And are smoothies a good thing to incorporate with children?
Yeah,
Should I do
absolutely. Yeah.
for children with the smoothie?
Yeah, I mean, there's, obviously there might be the odd superfood that you don't particularly want, you don't necessarily want your child to have, and they may not necessarily need to have loads of protein powder, but it's a brilliant way of getting them involved, It's a simple way. If you've got something like a NutriBullet, they are so easy to use. Kids can use them without breaking them, and you can get them to experiment, and that way they will think, do you know what? Actually, I don't like broccoli normally, but when I blended it, it's great, So that is a great way. Sorry?
Do you steam broccoli before you blend it? Because it obviously is really good.
No, just chuck it in. Chuck it in. Yeah, you can do, and it's great, if you've got leftovers that you've steamed veg, just chuck them in a smoothie afterwards.
Oh, excellent. Is there anybody that you should be having? Go on.
I'll tell you one that my kids thought was amazing. We blended up cauliflower, which this sounds really weird, cauliflower with some nut butter and raw cacao. And we added a frozen banana as well. And we got this amazing creamy chocolate smoothie. And they thought this was a great way of consuming cauliflower. I mean, the only time I would say, be a bit careful. If you've already got a lot of blood sugar imbalances, then obviously consuming fruit in any form, you do need to watch the blood sugar. Whether you're diabetic or insulin resistant, what I would generally say to people is you can have a green smoothie, but what you'd want to be doing is really keeping the sugar to very low, maybe just a handful of blueberries, which are very low glycemic, and then maybe putting in more protein and fat to stabilize the blood sugar. So that when the blueberries are broken down by the body, you're not going to get any spike. So that would be the only consideration.
Excellent. Well, that's a lovely lead, because next thing I do want to discuss with you is diabetes.
Yes.
Diabetes is something that we get asked. We have a lot of diabetics come into the shop at Roost and Bagshot, and we have a lot of people coming in who are either newly diagnosed or their children are suffering from it. So they're learning how to deal with diabetes with a child, and it's not something that I know a lot about. So this is a really good thing. Leading on, I guess, with the smoothies, because people are wondering what they should and shouldn't have. Why does there seem to be such a big rise in diabetes at the moment? Like, it just seems to be prolific.
Well, as you know, there are two types of diabetes. The one that you're really referring to is type 2 diabetes. Type 1 is an autoimmune disease. So type 1 is actually associated with other autoimmune diseases like celiac disease, for example. But type 2 is very different. And a lot of it, unfortunately, is to do with lifestyle choices. Now, obviously, there are certain subsets of populations that are more genetically at risk. So Asian population, you are genetically more at risk from type 2 diabetes. But generally speaking, some of it is more linked to do with obesity, particularly fat around the tummy, belly fat, eating lots of processed sugary foods, eating foods that are devoid of nutrients that our cells actually need in order to respond to insulin. So, healthy fat, for example, omega-3s, magnesium, all of these are actually really important for proper blood sugar control. And our diets are often quite devoid of those.
Just think that the age of people is just getting younger and younger and younger. This type 2 diabetes, it's so much more common than it ever used to be. And I'm surprised at the number of people who are coming in and that are needing information about it, really. And the information that they have is quite thin, in terms of from their doctors.
Yeah, and the trouble, I think, with diabetes is that it can creep on. So you don't suddenly wake up with diabetes. It's a continuum. So you often will find that you start losing control of your blood sugar. You might start craving foods more. You might be suffering more with energy dips or highs and lows. You might get shaky, irritable, if you haven't eaten for quite a while. And all of this can start to cause fluctuations in blood sugar, which then long term can lead to insulin resistance and then full-blown diabetes. So it can happen gradually without almost you realizing it. And it's estimated, by 2025, there'll be more than 4 million people in Britain with diabetes. type 2 diabetes. So it's a real health concern, and it's going to obviously have a massive impact on the NHS as well. And I think the confusion is that, oh, it's okay, I'm going to be given metformin or something to help with my blood sugar. I don't really need to change my diet. Absolutely, you do need to change your diet. And for a lot of people, if you change your diet early enough and include exercise and so on, you can stop this progression from, blood sugar imbalances, insulin resistance to full-blown diabetes without need for medication.
And is it fully reversible, or are they able to just?
There's been a lot of good studies now. Newcastle have done some studies on using very low calorie diets for reversing type 2 diabetes. There's quite a lot of good evidence that if you can get it early and you are implementing appropriate nutritional strategies, you can reverse it. So it partly depends on at what point you are on that continuum. The sooner you start getting, fasting glucose tested for insulin resistance, these are all blood tests, the better, because we can all make changes. There are also, nutrients that we know are very important in blood sugar control. So protein, fats for the cell membranes, magnesium, chromium. These are all foods or nutrients rather that are particularly important. And also other things. It's worth me mentioning that there is a link between stress and our levels of insulin. So when we are stressed, our levels of cortisol can go up. That helps to break down stored glucose, which is then released into the blood system, and then we get a spike of insulin. And if that happens regularly, that can increase our risk of potentially insulin resistance. It's also worth mentioning, and this is very relevant at this time of year, that vitamin D supplementation may reduce the susceptibility to type 2 diabetes. And obviously vitamin D is our sunlight vitamin. We make it when we're out in the sun through the skin. And many people in the UK are low in vitamin D. So get your vitamin D tested. Very simple thing to do. And again, we talked about fiber earlier. Soluble fiber, so beans, pulses, vegetables, flaxseed, chia seeds. These are all very useful for keeping the blood sugar more stable throughout the day. So you avoid those big dips. So there is actually a lot you can do. I've got a blog on diabetes or blood sugar control, which let me just post down here. Which people can read. And I've mentioned a few key foods as well that have been shown through the studies to be very beneficial. So, people have a read of that. There is a lot from the research now that we can do. The more unprocessed your diet is, the more you rely on good quality protein, meat, fish, beans, pulses, eggs, if you're vegetarian or vegan, and then you pile on loads of veg, which are low glycemic, not going to interfere with blood sugar. And that forms a big part of your diet with nuts and seeds and healthy fats, then that is the best way of preventing this, fluctuating seesaw of blood sugar throughout the day.
And I think it's really hard for them, though, isn't it, when they're going out? Because we see a lot of people coming into the cafe who aren't sure what they could be eating when they're out. Because when you're cooking your own food at home, it's much easier to monitor your sugar intake and the glycemic index of everything that you've got. But when you're buying prepared foods, it's much more difficult. So they're looking for the amount of carbohydrates in there, aren't they? They're looking for what kinds of sugars are in there. Is the type of sugar that they're taking in, if it's honey, if it's table sugar, if it's coconut sugar, is there a difference? They're going to fall differently on the glycemic index? Or is their body going to go down, or is it all going to be seen the same for diabetics?
Yes, so the glycemic index, will be different. But when you're reading a label, what you really are looking at is total amount of carbs, of which sugars. That's going to be more relevant if you're wanting to watch your blood sugar control. Now, there is something called net carbs. And net carbs, which the Americans use quite a lot, and people on ketogenic diets use a lot, is where you look at your total carb on the label, and then you look at the amount of fiber, and you take one from the other. And because what fiber does is, a lot of that is literally going to slow down the rate of release of blood sugar into the blood system. You know, soluble, insoluble fiber, a lot of it is secreted out, and you don't actually absorb a lot of that sugar there. So
then it could be the difference between the net carbs and the fiber. Just that amount is going to be the overall.
Well, net carbs is the total amount minus the fiber. So that would be effectively the available carbs. So that is something that a lot of people, particularly if you're on ketogenic diets, will be looking at. Now, what's interesting is that when you use a polyalcohol like xylitol, which is a common sweetener, you also take that away as well. So in that net carb thing, so xylitol doesn't really have any impact on blood sugar. So it's a much more effective sweetener than coconut sugar would be for a diabetic. Likewise, stevia. And there's been some good studies on stevia that doesn't really interfere with blood sugar. So if you are diabetic, stevia, xylitol are much better options for you because they are not going to spike an insulin response.
Now, are those natural sweeteners? So stevia, xylitol is from birch, is it not?
Yeah, so they're both natural. So xylitol is manufactured normally from birch or corn, generally in this country birch, and stevia comes from a plant. So it's the leaf of a plant and it's an extract. Now, there are some brands out there where they combine stevia with ordinary sugar. So just be careful you're choosing the right brand. And there's another one that combines stevia with erythritol, which is another polyol, which is absolutely fine. And what I like about that one is that you can use it weight for weight like you would ordinary sugar. Whereas stevia on its own, you have to be a little bit careful with how you use it because it's so intensely sweet that you can't use it as a bulking agent, say in a cake. You just add literally a few drops or just a sprinkling. So it's great if you're someone that's in. Sorry,
I was going to say, does it have the same impact then as other artificial sweeteners that we are that?
Oh no, yeah. So artificial sweeteners are completely different, and we know that artificial sweeteners can actually have adverse effects on your gut bacteria. So they can actually disrupt your gut bacteria. And bear in mind, your gut bacteria play a big role in obesity because the flora, the gut flora you have plays a central role in extracting energy from the food you eat. And we know that the gut flora of someone who is obese compared to someone who is slim is very different. And it's harvesting energy differently. The last thing you want to do is chuck sweeteners at it, which may disrupt your gut flora. So the microbiome is very important for, healthy blood sugar control, healthy weight, as well as many other things. I mean, we could do a whole blab on the gut flora, to be perfectly honest. And I know
for diabetics, the xylitol is fine, the stevia is fine, but anything like coconut sugar, agave nectar, maple syrup, honey, they're all still going to be the same as using brown sugar or white sugar, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, the glycemic index of coconut sugar is slightly lower, but your body's going to use it like a sugar. Be very careful because the other problem is that a lot of people assume they're healthier and then use more. So get them out because if you are really struggling with blood sugar, then you need to watch those sugars as well. Agave, really watch because it's high in fructose, and fructose is metabolized very differently than, say, just glucose. It's metabolized by the liver. And what we know is that it can contribute to very low density LDL, which is a big factor in heart disease, triglycerides, fatty liver disease, and it doesn't have the same effect on satiety. So you can consume a lot of it and not actually feel hungry, so you overeat. So be very careful with fructose syrups, high fructose corn syrup, agave, which is very high in fructose. I really wouldn't be touching them.
Excellent. Okay. Excellent. Well, let's leave the diabetes there, and let's we've been talking now for about 40 minutes. Should we just address a couple of questions that I've noticed on the side?
Yes, okay.
One that we had very early on about basically looks like the belly fat, and trying to reduce that and not being able to get it to go away. Now, belly fat is very commonly associated with eating very specific types of foods, isn't it? That we can see a correlation.
Belly fat is often associated with a poor blood sugar control and in some cases, high cortisol response. So it's often associated with high stress. So when we are stressed, our body will break down stored glycogen in the liver into glucose. And if you are then not going to use all of that energy, i.e. you're not going out for a run, then that energy that you've just released has to be stored somewhere. Now, the body's in survival mode. It thinks, I'm stressed, I might need access to this very quickly. So what it does is it stores it round the liver, round the tummy. And therefore you accumulate fat round the middle. So it is often associated with problems with blood sugar and problems with stress. So you might want to get your fasting glucose tested, insulin, you might want to get adrenal tested, and then look at supplements that are more specific for blood sugar control that may contain, for example, B vitamins, chromium, magnesium, omega-3s.
Excellent. And is it worth just making sure, again, like you mentioned earlier about the unprocessed diet, making sure that, you know, you're eating whole, real foods, making sure that you have lots of fruits and vegetables in your diet, healthy fats, good sources of protein, and staying away from processed foods and, you know, your breads and your pastas and things like that as well. Not obviously, I'm not what the diet is that Sabaron's on.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's a fundamental for anyone looking to control blood sugar and obviously ditch the fat. Is that your diet needs to be an unprocessed one that contains a higher level of protein and healthy fats, rather than, you know, processed sugary carbs in whatever form that you consume them. But there may be an adrenal issue going on with belly fat in particular.
Yeah, excellent. Brilliant. Well, I'm just trying to see, Christine, if there's anything else that we should really make sure what is the solution? But busy lifestyle, everybody gets stressed. Yes, everybody does get stressed. So was just thinking about stress.
We do, but we need to remember that there are key elements that we can do to alleviate that. So sleep. If you don't sleep, then you are more likely to suffer with cravings, poor blood sugar control, insulin resistance. There's been numerous studies on the importance of sleep. So you must discipline yourself to say, you know what, I'm going to bed. You get 8 hours a night. That's what you need. I think that is so undervalued, the importance of sleep. And then time for yourself, meditation, going out for a walk, going out for a swim, speaking to a friend, meeting a friend in a cafe, whatever you find is useful to de-stress, unwind, get off all the computers or the phones, have a little bit of me time away from electrical stimulation. Spend some time out in nature. There's also a lot of good studies now on barefoot walking. All right, I know it's cold outside at the moment and you probably don't want to run around your garden without any shoes on, but just spending time without shoes in touch with the ground outdoors has been shown to be very beneficial. So there's a lot of things we can do, even if we are very busy and very stressed. And it's making sure that that is a priority. Even if it is, I'm just going to run a bath and just have some time off. And that's as important as going to the gym. There's no question about that.
There's a lot to be looked at in terms of the whole general lifestyle for in terms of losing fat. It potentially isn't just your diet itself, is it? There's all these contributing factors.
Yeah, absolutely. And it may be that we do a blab on why can't I lose weight, because there's also a lot of hormonal things going on, thyroid, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, loads of other factors that can interfere with your ability to lose weight. Unfortunately, it's not about how many calories you're eating. It's far more complex than that.
Yeah, excellent. Brilliant. Okay, well, I think we're going to finish up there for today. Before we do finish up, just want to mention a few other things that we've got coming up that I forgot to mention at the beginning. So in February, we have you, Christine, coming down to Roost in Bagshot doing a seminar, which we're looking forward to. So February 24th, 7 p.m. till 9 p.m., we're running a seminar on healthy, happy kids. Anything else that you've got coming up, Christine, that you'd like to mention?
No,
we've got the children.
We've got seminar. Children's Cookery Day, 29th of February, book in. And we've also obviously got the smoothie challenge, which is free to join. Just go onto the homepage of our website, christinebailey.co.uk. We have got a range of other cookery days coming up, which we can mention in future blabs as well.
Excellent. And you'll be able to find out about those either on your website, Christine, or also you can find out about them through our Facebook page on Roost, where they're all posted as well. So just tune into those guys, and you can find out, keep up with what's going on, where you can see Christine. Any shows coming up that you'll be at, Christine?
We've got quite a few shows coming up. I'll announce them nearer the time, and we're also flying over to the Institute of Functional Medicine later on to be involved in some of their functional conferences as well, which is great.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you again next time, where we'll be back at the end of February for our next episode. So we'll see you then. Thank you very much.